Welcome in, everyone. This is our flow recap for the week of 2/3/2025 to 2/7/2025. As always, we're going to kind of look at the flow. We're going to go over kind of a bigger list this week of flow, just kind of what stuck out on the flow. We're going to look at the full range of the contracts. Doesn't mean that you're going to hit the max return, but I like to look at the full range of the contracts just to kind of see how you can improve your trading, adjusting stops up, and all that. And as always, flow is always called out in real time. I like to show everybody that may be just tuning in for the first time. All flow is called out in real time, and I don't edit my posts or anything. So let's get started here. And again, if you enjoy these videos, just please hit that subscribe button, hit a like. That's kind of all I ask, and kind of helps people that are looking to advance their trading, kind of can help them learn to read flow properly. But let's get started here. So on Monday, first up, we had the 228 112 UPS calls. So let's go back to Monday. So here's how that flow looked when it came in, and looking at the net call premium here, obviously I had that big spike in the net call premium. Here is your whale entry here. You can see about 1,200 contracts at about 178. They're about 216,000 on that candle when you look at the flow here. So majority of this kind of came in bigger chunks here, so that does help when you're reading flow. So first up, I kind of like looking at that IV. You can see that IV spike is the big volume and big premiums come in here. And again, you can kind of see IV drops a little bit here, but typically when that big amount of volume comes in there, that sticks out to me. And what kind of supersedes that too as well, you kind of look at that spot price increasing as that flow comes in. That's a good sign there too. IV increasing or decreasing doesn't always throw or make me disregard a trade. I kind of look at the spotting, just kind of the overall stuff there. So you can see that flow here, 178, this actually spiked. And let me move this to Friday so everybody can kind of see that. So here's your original whale entry. These hit the high of the week here on the 6th. So if you come down here and we look at 2/3 when that volume came in, you can see most of that carrying over. You can see most of it kind of still sticking there. See that volume, that line there is just telling you where the price of the contract is going. You can see we hit our high here of 296 here on 2/6. So those running from 177 to 296, that's a 67.23% gain. Again, you're not going to exit at the top. Just kind of like to see how that contract moves. More than likely, you're probably going to take profit same day here once that started dropping here, because you filled here about 179-ish, ran up to about 260, 259 intraday and started dropping. I'd have stops on to secure profits. Up next, we had run. So this was actually a run will come a little later because this was a flow and charts one. So Intel actually, then we'll come back to run. So Intel here on the 3rd again. Let's come back here and look at the day. So here's your 3rd here. And we actually got in at 84 on these ones. You can see 84, and these ran up pretty quick to about 109 here. So those made a nice intraday move here. And interesting here because you had about 5, not a majority of the contracts carrying over, so probably some volume coming off here, but looks like probably on the 7th here. Let's go to Friday. Can see probably closing out their positions here for a little loss, but again, this is why I say it's always important to adjust your stops up, because these moved from that 84 to about 105 on the day. It's a 25% gain. Shouldn't be letting contracts that are 25% up turn red. So looks like they kind of took them off here probably Friday for a loss. Would be able to check that in on Monday morning. So next up we had SPY. So this one, again, they still have about 2 weeks on these, but this was our original whale entry. Let's look at the raw flow. So you come in here, so you can see it's a repeated hits ascending fill. You can see that IV pop. You can see that spot price increase here as it comes up, and that bid ask is increasing. So this is where you're getting that ascending fill. The ascending fill just means that fill price is going up. So that looked good there at the time. Again, 13 days left on those. Those were filled at 205. And almost looks, they did kind of make a small little intraday move here. So this one's a little interesting because when you look at that volume here from 2-3, you can see about, we'll say 14,800, just make it easy. Only about 9,800 of those carried over. And this whale was about 77, so they probably took some off here almost, it looks like at the peak, about 230. So those did end up hitting a high. So that 378 that was earlier in the day, but they hit about 231 for a high there. So again, that's about 11.5% there. Still a good trade. I like to obviously adjust stops up to secure profits. 10%. If I'm up 10%, I like setting stuff at break even at least to secure some profits. Maybe take some off the table. 10% is still a good return. And obviously it looks like they closed about 81 here, but 13 days on there, and it's starting to get kind of multi-leggy, so I kind of start to avoid it once it's multi-leg like that. Because once it starts to get multi-leg, you don't know for sure what they're doing. So again, let's move on here to HIMS. So these were the 214.46 calls, and this was a nice return here for us. So this was on the 3rd. Let's look at the 3rd. So again, this is really important too, because you look here, that volume to open interest, clearly an opening trade just based on that volume to open interest. There's no open contracts. They can't be closing anything. So you can see most of that carrying over too, and here's our flow at the time. Let's take a peek at the flow. Let's see, bump the results down. So again, that IV just kind of staying up here, not seeing a big change or anything. And that IV kind of that spot being filled right at the ask price. You can see that bid ask kind of getting a little tighter up here, but that bid ask here is a little bit wider, so kind of showing aggression there. And when we bump this to Friday, you can see here's that spike at 69 where that original entry was. They actually hit a high of 287 on Friday, giving us, that's a 315% return. To me, it looks like that whale probably took some off the table here about 178 though. Won't be able to tell though until Monday's open interest change, but again, obviously big spike here, and you spiked here on the 5th too as well, up to 191. So again, 6 days on those. I'm gonna probably make a good assumption with theta decay over the weekend. This open interest will drop on Monday. So again, those moving from that 0.69 to a high of 287 there on the 7th. So up next, now we're going to circle back to run here. So run was a flow and chart. So that's showing on the 3rd because these are from the hottest contracts that I pulled. So I do like to show everybody in here. So here was our run. So these are so for everybody in Discord or out there, these are the trades that I'm taking. These are my highly more convicted trades, I'd say. So you look at the large whale here on the 516 call. You can see that clean entry there, some volume there towards close, but spikes in that net call premium. You look at the chart on the weekly there, you can see we're in a good demand zone here. You look at that gamma was picking up there a little bit as well too with the price declining. So looking at run here, so these would be getting filled on the 4th technically since it was posted on the 3rd. So, and I actually filled in here about 101.99, so those did make a nice little intraday move here, so 97. They actually ended up hitting here on the 5th. Let me pull this out to Friday so everybody can see. So here is your 5th there, or 4th here. Sorry, it gets a little confusing when you're swapping it like that. So get fill about 1. You hit about 115 here, so about 12-15% on those depending on your fill. It's kind of, I'm looking for at least, I like a 15% return, but still if I'm up 10%, should have a stop on it, at least at break even. 10% still a good return, especially if you're scalping and all that. But so those runs making a run from, we'll say 102 to 115, about 12-13% on that one. And moving up here, so next we have ARKG. This was an ETF. Here is your flow, and this is a good reason why you should always be adjusting stops up here. So we look at that raw flow feed. Pop the results down a little bit. So you can see kind of before that whale started to come in, you can see that spike in that IV there, and you can see all ask side fills coming in here. So your repeated hits flow alert just means that contracts getting repeatedly hit. So you can see that IV staying up there and all coming in at the ask. And if we come back and look at the 4th here, you can see that big spike in that net call premium. And let me pop that off because that's going to look weird. So this is how it looked on the day. Obviously 5,000 contracts, only 4,500 carrying over. So some little other transactions in here. But the good thing is, there's your original entry. These ended up hitting a high of 120 here on the 5th. So those moving about 41%. So we kind of chopped that same day, and then we ended up gapping up. Looks like that whale might be taking some off here at 80, 60, and 45. Would have to check that in Monday morning. So again, that's why I always say the whales give you a good idea of maybe where the stock could be moving, but these whales don't always have the best fills, so it's always kind of good to maybe find a good resistance support spot depending on if it's a call or put, and obviously being smart and managing your risk where you see this whale's cutting these for a loss because they filled at 85 and taking them off at 80, 60, 45. So that's why I always say adjust stops up. Don't know the full idea of what's going on with each whale's trade. So that's just kind of a little tip and trick there I like to tell people. Next up, we had the 2.7 Pepsi 146 puts. This, whoops, let's go back here. Oops, sorry. So your original entry here, 131. And these made a really quick intraday move. So let's take a peek at here. You see a big spike in that IV there. And you can see that bid ask is a lot wider there, so that sticks out to me instantly. You can see a lot of that volume coming in here. And if we go back to the 4th here, you can see that clean entry here. You can see about 1,700 contracts, so they filled, we'll say about 1,000 there. Just took some off here at the ask, it looks like, because only about 700 carried over there. And you can just see that spike in that net put premium too. That net call premium dropping off, and that 130, these things spiked immediately. I mean, we hit a high of 330 the same day. So, I mean, that's 153%. If you're getting that, you're probably going to be taking profits off that same day. And if we come back to Friday and just kind of look at the full scope of everything, again, there's your whale entry spike, and they even opened up on the 5th as well at about 308. So you would have had 2 days where you could have took profits. And I mean, you start seeing that price drop on those contracts with weeklies. That theta's more aggressive on those. All right, IEF, and this one, good example of an exit and an entry and an exit. This whale filled these 10,700 contracts, at that 79. You can see that 10,700 contracts there. 51 whale cutting those for a 35% loss. You can see that reflected there in the volume to open interest. You can see not a lot of that carrying over. So that one would be a loss on the week. FSLR, this one, again, another reason why I always tell people it just stops up. So we're going to come back to the 4th here. So you can see that 4th here, spike at 1. They hit about 120. That's 20% there. Kind of looking at that raw flow too. You can see that spike in that IV there. Not right at the ask, but still a little wider bid ask there. So that looked good to me there. And obviously you can see that whale spiking there up at 120. We come and look at Friday. So this whale tried to hold these, as you can see. About 4,000 of those contracts there on the 4th, about 3,400 of those carrying over. They added to their position actually here on the 6th. So a lot of volume in there in the 6th. Looks like that big whale actually ended up closing these at a loss of 0.04, but they hit at least our 20%, so that's a win for us. All right, next up we have PLTR. So again, this whale was chasing. This was after earnings. So if we come and look here at the 4th, so here is your whale entry here, 10,000 contracts at 2. They cut those at 180. Looks like they were looking for a chase. I mean, you look at that overall net call premium for the day, it spiked. But you come down here and look, we had 21,000 contracts here. So 10,000 there, 10,000 there. Only about half of those carried over. So to me, this is telling me this whale opened, and it's a little odd there. So you had a total of 20,000, only half of those carried over. So the original whale to me is telling me they opened them at 2 and passed them off to somebody else at 180. So when you come back here, oops, let's go back in here. So back to Friday. So you can see that whale, they kind of dropped a little bit here to about 99, but then we had that big spike up here on Friday. Hit a high of 473 on Friday. So if that original whale would have held at that 199, they would have ran from 199 to 473. That's 137%. So that I consider that a win still. We have 34 days on those. Again, we're looking at the full range of the contracts. And I was telling people in the group, these are 34 days out. Probably smart to maybe let PLTR pull back maybe a day. Could be a chance at a discounted entry, and there you go. PayPal. Again, this one's kind of flat right now, 115. Closed at 115 on Friday. 68 days on those. They did make a run up on the same day from that 115 to 135, so 17% intraday move there. See, this was a flow and charts one. I'll pull this up quick here. So you look at the flow and charts, we had a spike in that ask side premium. Could see that daily gamma decreasing. And it looked like a nice little weekly supply zone there too. And this one, these filled the next day here. So these came in at close. These filled for me at 183 on the next day. They ran up and hit that 211, 212-ish there. So a little 15% gain there, and I told everybody again as well, I like to show up for transparency purposes. I was going to be adjusting those up on those today. I wanted to secure profits. So up next, we have the Uber 2.5 put. So Uber, those running from 159, they actually hit 193 on the day. That's a 21% gain. Looks like that whale closed those at a loss at 80 here on the next day, but again, hitting our move, so 21%. Intel, this one's getting a little messy here, kind of little tougher to read here. So the 5th, there's your whale entry at 51. To me, it looks like that whale kind of took some off the table here, because you kind of come back here and look. The 5th, only about half of that carrying over. Looks like they kind of cut there at 47 or 50. So they cut it for about a 7% loss on those. No, this one's still a little kind of to be determined. They're down right now, obviously. Whale filled these at 60. They're just kind of chopping here at about 25 right now. So that whale's down 58% on those. So this is where I tell people you're looking for a discounted entry. Here's a discounted entry for you. 41 days on those discounted entry could be a good pickup there. TSM. So this one's starting to get kind of a little messy here, but this was our original entry here at 365. These hit a high of 450 here on Friday. So those moving for us for 23.29%. HIMS, this made a nice move for us as well too. So these coming in here on the 5th, there's your HIMS entry here, and we actually got in here at 224, or 245, sorry, not 224. Let me pop this back to the 5th here just so we can see it. So we got in here about that 232-ish. I got 230 or 245 is our entry. These actually hit. Whoops, I didn't want to get out of there. Friday. So these actually ended up hitting on the 6th. You can see that down here. Here's your 6th, hitting 325 for a high. So that's about 32.65% on those. Then we had a SPY call. This was kind of almost a more lotto SPY call, because you look at that big spike here, 26. Looks like they probably took some off here about 25. Probably took some off here at 9 on the next day. But not a lot of that volume carrying over, so kind of probably was looking for a little trend up there. So I've got those. They actually hit 30 from that entry. So 26 was the entry, so they hit 30. Hit 28, so you kind of look at that, and you're kind of just going around that about 7-10% or so. So still a win, but just not a huge win if you would have scalped those. X. So this is a good example of not everything being at the ask is a sell, because I'm going to make a really good educated guess on this one. Here is your X flow. So you look at X here, big spike in that IV. Pretty much it's coming above the ask here, so that's even more aggressive there. You can see we kind of just chopped here. Then we had news come out on Friday. Those hit a high of 275. I have actually 330 as a high, but I have it set at 285 there because that's what the chart's showing. So those moving 137%. So now looking at this is a good example here. You look at the candle, 1,500 contracts there, about 1,500 there. This whale's more than likely exiting at the ask. You can check that open interest here on Monday to verify that. Probably going to be about maybe 300, 400 contracts. Otherwise, they doubled down at the high, and they're probably regretting that now. So BBAI. Now we're coming into Friday's contracts, so not always making a full move yet. Kind of have to see how these go. But these BBAIs, 70 looks like they could have added here at 35, 35, and 35. Have to see that open interest on Monday. But those contracts are down about 45% right now if they're trending at 38, and that original whale entry was 70. So that one's still a little to be determined on that one. So SPY, these made an intraday move for us here. Your big whales coming in here. About 3 million on that total chain there. You can see these filled at 295. Hit a high of 380 on the day. That's 28%. Baba here. So a lot coming in here. At about 4 was our call out. Seeing some kind of coming off here about 330-ish. Looks like they're cutting about 330 here. So we're going to consider that a loss at 330. So those whales cut for a 17% loss. LMT, this made a really good intraday move for us. You see that flow here. So this is Lockheed Martin, and you can see that spike in that IV. That IV is increasing all the way up. That spot price is increasing all the way up, spike in that IV, and can see that spot coming $30 over the ask. So these are being filled at $470 a contract. The ask is only $440. Very aggressive there. And can see that was a good move because those moved 466, hit a high of 727, and we closed at that actually. So 54% on those. GM still a little to be determined, but 30, these kind of chopped around that 33 most of the day. They did spike and hit 41 here at a point. You can see GM spiked here on that yellow line, but kind of chopped, still up about 10%. But those did hit a move of 36% intraday. HIMS, here's your whale, 217, hitting 325 for a high. That's 49% there. IWM, a little to be determined on this one, 41 days. They filled at 375, running at 327, whales down 12%. FEZ, these are kind of haven't really made a big move yet. 92, looks like we closed at 97 here, 98, so they're up 3% right now with 41 days. Lunar, this whale's down a couple percent here, filled at 315. You can see they closed at 308, again 27 days on those. And then we had some SPY puts towards close. See a lot of that. 398 was the fill there. So whales down about 8%. They're running at 366 right now. But yeah, so the Friday contracts I always will post the next week too, just to kind of see what they did. Just because sometimes they obviously haven't made a move. You have something coming in on a Friday for 41 days out. You're not going to always see that move, but a little longer video this week. A lot of flow that we covered. And if you've always wanted to try unusual whales, feel free. I will leave a code in the description. And if you want to join Stock Hub, where all this is called out real time and all that, there is also a description in the description below. Have a great weekend, everyone.